Hello, it's Daz. This week's discussion is about light, and when I talk about light, I mean in the spiritual sense, the true light versus the false light. Let's start with a verse from John 1:9, KJV. That was the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. In this verse, it's referring to Christ and how he was the true light that came into the world. And we see this dichotomy of him being the true light and then being warned about a false light. And an example of the false light is in 2 Corinthians 11:14. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. So a lot of times when we think of light and darkness, we put everything good in the light category and everything bad in the darkness category, when I believe there is duality in both. Bad also can contain light as well, but it's a false light. And I find this fascinating because when it comes to different doctrine, a certain doctrine, it sounds almost right. It's kind of like a perfect lie. The best lies are kept closest to the truth. The worst lies are the ones that no one believes. That's what people call crazy. But things that sound close to the truth are the ones that people are more likely to be beguiled by. And we see in other scripture, Matthew 24:24, for there shall rise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that if were possible they shall deceive the very elect. So it lets us know that to some capacity, all of us are capable of being deceived at some point. It doesn't mean everyone will be. But it also makes mention of the fact there are false Christs and false prophets who are able to show signs and wonders. So this false light that exists, what exactly is this? So now I'm going to take a more non-traditional approach to this and look at even just when we hear stories about different supernatural encounters that people talk about, whether that's someone was visited by aliens and they saw this light through their window and they could no longer move, or the fact that a lot of times within different folklore, as I've mentioned in the past, for example, where my dad comes from in Mexico, they talk about something known as Pelechusa, where there are witches that are able to shapeshift, and one way they know they're near is they appear as orbs of light. I've had my own experiences where I've had nightmares where I've seen orbs of light, but it wasn't good light, it was bad light. And I've heard the phrase, don't walk toward the light. A lot of times there is this like ominous type of light that we hear about in horror. But that's not to be something we should be afraid of, but just as a warning. If we think about it, Satan himself was once an angel of light, and he technically is still, but of a false light. I think about 1 Timothy 4:1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter time some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. And this doesn't have to be something that's necessarily satanic or dark or scary. It could just be small lies, what people call little white lies, or lying by omission, changing things slightly. But it's so important to have discernment and to pray and to read the word and have that relationship so we aren't deceived by false doctrines, false prophets, and understand that there is a such thing as false light. I saw a movie recently. It was on Netflix. I believe it came out all the way in 2019. And it was called The Ritual. And in it, this group of friends are backpacking in Europe. A couple weeks after one of their friends is murdered in a grocery store, they end up taking a shortcut in the woods because one of them falls and gets injured. They go off the path and they end up seeing all of these strange symbols that indicate witchcraft, like there's sigils and runes and everything. And they stumble on this cabin that has a altar. One by one, they get picked off. At the end, the main source of this is this entity. It's a Jotun, which is a part of Norse mythology. And it's almost like a Satan-like figure. It's a satyr, which is a half man, half goat being in mythology. It's what Pan was. In it, the character constantly is broken about the murder of his friend because he feels like there's something he should have done. And one of the first scenes where it's sort of revealed to him that something's not right, he sees the false light. It's interesting because as much as people affiliate like seeing a bright light with something glorious and good, we see there is this eerie type of light. It really got me thinking about it to share this. I do think in these times, as the world continues to get darker, and when I say darker, I mean even from the sense of just more bleak, lack of opportunities, as I talked about last week, hyperinflation. People are going to seek some kind of light, but it doesn't mean that the light that is shining in certain areas is of Christ. And if people are not using discernment or they're not connected, they may end up a victim of the false light. Those are some thoughts I wanted to share with you all, and I hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative or interesting. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care. God bless. Until next time.